Rob and I are back. It's time now for the first two inductees into the Ruler Hall of Fame. Ruler wanted to create something which recognised the great legends of the sport of cycling. In future years, the readership of Ruler will get a chance to vote, but in this first year, I thought there was a little debate on who the first two inductees should be. On the women's side, Beryl Burton, and on the men's side, we've already seen him, Eddie Merckx. I'd like to also say a big thank you to Reynolds, a legendary cycling manufacturer who've produced these beautiful awards, as you'll see, using 3D printing in stainless steel. But first, the citation, Rob, for Eddie.
So 525 professional victories to his name. Eddie Merckx stands alone as undisputably the greatest rider of all time. Merckx's accomplishments can be found in all corners of the men's sport, not only just the record for the overall Tour de France titles, 5 of course, but more stage wins than anybody else, 34 for the record. As well as the most monuments, 19, he has as many road race rainbow jerseys as anyone. At the peaks of Merckxissimo between 1970 and 1974, Merckx averaged 2 Grand Tour victories and 3 Classics titles per season, winning more than a third of races that he entered. He went a long way from the kid living in Brussels who dreamed of being a racer. To fans of the present-day sport, in which riders, with the odd exception, are 3-week racers or Classics one-day specialists, stage hunters maybe, or even GC contenders, the tally that he achieved really does defy comprehension. Yet, it was not just that it was a different era. Even at the time, Merckx had unprecedented success. It shook cycling all the way to its core. Then, as now, he's still the greatest. It was an inner urge which always motivated Eddie to race, his wife Claudine said. He wasn't looking for recognition, he was looking for satisfaction for himself. Merckx was only a voracious cannibal on the bike, though. He remains a down-to-earth and kind man off it. The sporting feats made him a legend, but his character helped sustain it. Eddie Merckx.
Dutch Tour de France star Zoetemelk is tired. Merckx seems resigned to his fate. Eddie Merckx, the race is over for him. He hasn't been able to dominate this one. But suddenly, he mounts an attack. Only a Merckx would attack at this late hour.
Eddie Merckx, first over the top of Monte Carpena.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Eddie Merckx and Mark Cavendish to present the award. Again,
yeah.
just come to the front, and Mark, come to the front just to present the award. I think there's a photographer somewhere, yes? Is there an official photographer? There he is.
A lot of smartphone
So
photography.
a bit of a handover.
Okay, just before, it was out when I got asked to do this, it was an honor the first time I ever met you, Eddie, and yeah, for every cyclist growing up, you're the absolute god, and to call you a friend is something I couldn't have ever dreamed of, and I'm proud to do so. So I'd like to give you the inaugural Ruler Classic Hall of Fame award, is that right?
That's very good, well
You're
done.
the inaugural entrant into the Ruler Classic Hall of Fame, and yeah, rightly so. So here we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Sit down. Have a seat.
Where am I?
Right. So, Eddie, you're obviously the man, and some.
An old man.
Well, yeah, we're all getting older. I mean, you were so good. Did your competitors hate you? Because you were so good.
Yeah. You have to ask my parents because they make me so good.
This is true. So, but what was it like? Because you were so dominant, and somebody when
I think
somebody's
a
so
lot of
good-
talent, and I was working very hard. That's the only way to become a champion. I think talent is one, but working is most so important than the talent.
And the drive inside you, your wife talked about it, was not necessarily wanting to beat people, but just to be as good as you could be, this drive inside you.
Sorry,
The
but
drive, your wife talks about the drive inside you, not so much for recognition, but just to be the best.
yeah, when you do sport, you try to be the best, no? So I also, when I start, try to win.
And you won a lot.
And Mark, talking of winning a lot, I mean, it's almost impossible in modern cycling for anybody to dream of having the palmarès that this man has.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, across it's so specialist that it was not. You could argue that cycling is specialist now, or Eddie was just that good, you know. So we don't know. But yeah, to be able to win consistently day after day, I don't know. I can't even imagine it. You know, it's something. Yeah, it's something you can't imagine. You know.
You shared Milan San Remo win. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite nice to see.
Only
this-
once.
only once, but you got it twice.
Oh, no,
How many
yeah,
did you
well,
win?
I know, I think
how
I
many
was-
did you win in Milan San Remo?
7 times.
7 times.
Or is that many? I had to check.
How old were you when you won the first time?
The 5th time.
The first time.
First time. I was 21.
Were you? Were you?
No, not 21.
23 you were, I think.
No, the first one, I was not 21. I was 66 and 20 and a half, 20 and 6 months.
I'm going home.
Well, don't go just yet, because
Yeah.
you quite beautifully described.
I wish you're going to win 4 more stages, 5 more stages, so you can
We're not,
beat the
we're not
record
talking
of
about
Tour de
this
France.
tonight. We're not. No, this doesn't.
Yeah,
get
we
me.
are.
We're steering away from that one, Eddie.
Yeah, no, sure.
You quite beautifully referred to Eddie as your friend there.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite difficult for a lot of people to meet their heroes sometimes, but what was it like to meet this man?
Well, I'll tell you this story. Like, so my first roommate, so I joined T-Mobile 2007, and I started here 2006. But my first roommate when I joined was Axel, was Eddie's son, Axel Merckx. And I can remember the hotel we were in, and it had this these little tiny beds. You're in this like shit little hotel in France, and like Norway.
Like they all are.
Nothing
I mean, let's be
changed.
honest.
And I can remember Axel could reach round the bed and touch his hands, and his feet were out the floor. And I remember later, like, we were laughing a bit and we were talking, and he was so good to me, like he was so good. And I remember saying like, "Oh, can I meet your dad one day?" Do you think? I said, "What's he like?" Just asking him about it. And at the time, like, I was only a kid and thinking like, "Well, you're his dad, you know." So for me, it was like. He's saying, well, he's my dad, you know, and I didn't quite get it, you know, because you're Eddie, and yeah, and then we met later that year, and it's just like I think the one thing everyone will always say, the first kind of I can't think of the word I've gone. The first thing they think about Eddie is he's humble, you know, like Eddie is not just he's not just the greatest cyclist that's ever lived. He's among the greatest sportsmen in history, you know. You talk about Muhammad Ali, and like Eddie's up. He's one of the greatest sportsmen ever lived, and just the sense of like, kind of how humble he is the first thing that kind of radiates, you know, and it doesn't change, you know. So
Do you have to pinch yourself? We have this phrase in English. You pinch yourself when you think of what you've achieved.
Maybe now when I saw my palmarès, I didn't know I was doing that. So and classics and stage races, 6 days. It was unbelievable. I think I have a good health to do some things like that.
But you say you had your good health. I mean, you had a very bad crash, and your Derny rider was
absolutely.
tragically killed, and that had a big impact, didn't it, on your ability?
Yeah, 69 after the tour, some meeting on the track, behind Derni's, and some guys crashed in front of us, and the guy of the Dernier died on the moment, and when I was waking up, I think my legs was broken, but it was my hips. It was completely turned, and after 6 weeks, I started again riding, but there was no education of nothing, and so I never climbed so good as after 69. But I mean, still for Tour de France.
Yeah.
Saved it for July.
Yeah.
And how did you like, I mean, we've talked about what a lovely guy you are, how humble you are. How do you like being called the cannibal, the man-eater?
That's, for me, it's not a problem.
Is that a problem?
They can't call me like I want. My victories are there. It was some girl, small young girl, who of an old. The year before, I ride for Peugeot. He was my teammate, and then we were to the start, and his daughter was there, and he said to his daughter, "Listen, this one will win everything." And so she said, "He's a cannibal."
He's the cannibal.
Nice to know the origins of the story.
No, absolutely. And then I can't really say it. Merxissimo.
Yeah.
This, to describe, it was a L'Equipe journalist, I think, Godet, who just to talk about your dominance.
That period in the early
That
70s.
period in the 70s.
It's come
when-
from the Italian. Coppi was Campionissimo, and Merxissimo.
Why not?
No, why not indeed? And look, and Cav, while you're here, I think we'd all like to hear how your health is, how you're doing. You signed for Dimension Data for another year. Just tell everybody.
I'm all right. Thanks for asking, Jonathan. I'm feeling all right, but I felt all right before with it. Epstein-Barr is a strange thing that it's always with you. Yeah. It just wasn't managed very well. I've had it now a year and a half. You just kind of like, it's kind of hard to describe if you don't have it. You kind of have to stop, and yeah, so I feel all right. I'm back on the bike and that, but we'll have to see. I have to be kind of steady with it. But yeah, 33. I'm still young.
You're still young.
Yeah.
And
Nowadays, Eddie. Nowadays.
so is his record safe? Do you still harbour ambitions?
We weren't going to talk about this.
I know we weren't going to talk about it, but now we're here.
I don't know. Listen, if I can win 20 more stages of the tour, I'll try and win 20. If I'm only good enough to win one more, so be it. You know, it's hard enough. Eddie will tell you, just to win one stage of the Tour de France is hard enough. You know, so because I'm on 30, don't mean it comes easy. You know, it's not easy when you're getting talked in the same kind of sentences as Mr. Merckx here. You know, then you know it's something that don't come like that. So I'll try.
We'll
I'll see what I can do.
Well, we'd like to see. Eddie would like to see you win 3 more.
We'll see.
So look, Mark, thanks for coming, for presenting the award to Eddie. But stay here because there is another award. It's the Patron Award. It's to recognise exceptional services to cycling. It goes to Ernesto Colnago, a good friend of yours. And before you talk about Ernesto, because you're going to accept the award on his behalf, here's a few words from Ernesto.
Questo giorno vorrei ringraziare Rouleur per questo premio dato Colnago, che riguarda quello che ha fatto Colnago per il ciclismo nel mondo. Ringrazio tanto. Vorrei dire che il miglior corridore con cui ho collaborato è Eddy Merckx, un amico. Ci siamo appena salutati perché il 25, qualche giorno fa, sono stati 46 anni che ha fatto il record dell'ora Città del Merckx. Una cosa speciale, una cosa irripetibile. Eddy è una persona speciale che i giovani dovrebbero imparare. Una persona seria, che la sua qualità è la continuità della serietà. Saluto tutti, anche a Peter e Hugh, distributori nostri in Inghilterra, e un abbraccio a tutti. Un abbraccio a Eddie. Ciao Eddie, ti saluta Ernesto.
Ciao Ernesto.
Grazie Rolando.
Ciao, Ernesto. Ernesto Colnago. So Eddie, tell us about the bike from Mexico when you broke the hour record. Was it something it was a collaboration with you and Ernesto?
Yeah, I want to have the same frame that I ride on the road. So yeah, it was not special. I didn't want a light bike because on the track it's the advantage to have a light frame, because what was important to have light wheels and good tires. That was the most important thing, and for the rest, yeah, was that was the most important thing for me.
And Mark, I mean, every person here, man or woman who rides a bike, probably lusts after a Colnago at some point. For a pro rider, does it have the same resonance?
It's got a history in cycling that can't be paralleled, really, you know. I remember growing up, a lad had one, I can't remember which model it was, but it had like the 2 down tubes, and it was just something that's a bit different. I've never actually raced on one, but I do have a Colnago, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, yeah, I think growing up you kind of dream of having it, whether it's not necessarily for performance, but for what it means in the history of cycling, you know. So I do own one, and I'm happy to. So.
Well, it's still ridden in the peloton today. We see it obviously when we go to the races like the Giro d'Italia, the badges everywhere, the names are everywhere, and as Mark said, you know, the history of this sport, especially when you go to places like Italy, you can see it everywhere, and it's just something that it's incredible that Ernesto's still going and still running the thing at this age.
He's still around at bike races all the time. Man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he was last seen giving Fabio Aru a ticking off sometime in summer. Actually.
Yeah, Fabio and Colnago, maybe we won't talk about that. Look, Eddie, thanks very much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. All of us have really enjoyed it. Cav, for coming along and presenting the awards. So please show your appreciation for Eddie Merckx and Mark.
Thank you.
You all right?
So now, Mr. Citation Man,
I'm ready.
Beryl Burton.
So Beryl Burton won such an overwhelming number of honours. I think I made more Northern, actually, as I
think
about
you
Beryl
should,
Burton,
yeah.
quite naturally, during the course of her career, that hers is a name that stands pretty much alone in UK cycling history. She won 2 World Road Race Championships in 1960 and 1967. She was individual pursuit world champion on an amazing 5 occasions, believe it or not. Alongside international stardom, Burton dominated the domestic scene for several decades. She was the British National Pursuit Champion 13 times, and she won the road title, again something unthinkable in these days, on 12 occasions. 12 occasions, British National Road Champion. She was 18 times the national 100-mile champion, 23 times the national 50 champion, and 26 times the national 25-mile champion. Burton claimed national records for every one of those distances, and several more, and she kept them for many years as well. Now, all of them have been surpassed, but she still held the women's 12-hour time trial, not sure who could do such a thing nowadays, record of 277.25 miles until as recently as 2017, last year. Back when she set it in 1967, not only did Burton improve on her own 1959 figure by a whopping 27 miles, but she recorded a distance that for 2 years stood even ahead of the men's record as well. She was an absolute machine. She hailed from the Leeds suburbs, and Beryl had a childhood affected by rheumatic fever and heart arrhythmia, For that reason, amazingly, she was told never to exercise. Fat lot of notice she took to that. She started to work in a clothing factory, and she used to go to work by bike. Quickly, she became the best in her cycling club and then her nation. She'd often knit before races to keep her concentration. It was obviously a very different era. She was forced to take unpaid leave from the post office to pursue her world titles. Later, she then worked on a beaten rhubarb farm, doing 12-hour shifts throughout the winter. She returned from the world title win in 1959, and nobody met her at the train station. She had to get a lift home with a lorry driver in the end. She said, "I wasn't seeking personal adulation, but just a little recognition would have not have gone amiss." She wrote later, "I was a double world champion in an international sport, and it might as well have been the ladies' darts final down at the local." But here we are. Burton was renowned for her modesty, her longevity, and of course, having overcome all of those obstacles, her determination. She told one racer, "Come on, lad, you're not trying," as she passed him. Her will to win was relentless. It always pushed her racing. It always pushed her to the limit. Ladies and gentlemen, Beryl Burton.
And seen overtaking a girl in orange is Beryl Burton, who is already moving fast through the field. Now, BB is expected, so it's all eyes up the road for the Morley Express. Now, Beryl has ridden hard to be sure of this one, and it must be a great relief to see the finish. The lady is 25 years old. First, Beryl Burton, 1:04. Second, Shirley Killingbeck, 1:2:44. Third, Anne Illingworth, 1:3:38. Here are the winning team from the city of Stoke, followed by Beryl Burton. Up the right way. Championship hat. Absolutely fantastic, yes it was. And I had a look at me last night, and I sat watching television, which is something I don't normally do. I've got one.
Yes, lovely footage there. The incomparable Beryl Burton. I don't know if they had mic drops in those days, but probably not. Please welcome to the stage her daughter Denise to receive the award from Sheila Hardy, who's the chair of the British Cycling Time Trials.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Where's our photographer? Here we go.
Yeah, I think I'll be here.
You can do the official handover and...
It gives me the very greatest of pleasure. It's a humbling and a real big pleasure to give this to you, Denise, in memory of your mum. Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, everybody. Well, it's a real pleasure to accept this. I wish my mum was here to accept it for herself, but I am so pleased that she's got this. She would have been thrilled. She really would have been thrilled. And quite humbled by it as well, because she was that type of person. She couldn't understand why people, you know, made big things out of her, because she just did what she loved to do and she was passionate about and blinking good at. So, yeah, thank you very much for all this. Yeah. You're very welcome.
Sit down. I mean, Rob mentioned there in the introduction about perhaps the lack of recognition that Beryl
Yes.
got through her career for all that she achieved. So, as you just said, I mean, this must be a very special moment.
It is a special moment. I'm a bit, my throat's a bit full here, you know, seeing those pictures there and hearing what was said, it's lovely, but brings back a lot of memories from my childhood and when I was racing as well.
Because not just a daughter, a competitor.
Yeah, a competitor, a big competitor, yeah. Yeah, it didn't matter that, you know, mother and daughter, because we both wanted to win. And she quite often did, but...
It's fascinating hearing about that internal family rivalry,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Tell us a bit more about it.
Well, it's, I suppose that's it. We both wanted to win. You know, we both trained. I obviously, as I was younger, I was just competing with schoolboys, schoolgirls and all that. But then you had to get straight into women's racing with the adults because there wasn't anything in between in those days. So, yeah, it was good. And I've got that competitive spirit just as she had. And we were just rivals in a way. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, she did take umbrage at one point when you won the national
She did,
title and
yeah.
felt that you didn't do your fair share.
I did, oh, well, that's what she said. I
That's what-
think I did. I
What's
did.
your side of the story?
My side of the story is this one. Yes, I did. I did my fair share, but I'm a bit sensible, and you know, I know how to race. So yeah, it was good, and I was the fastest sprint finisher in the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Sheila, you raced against Beryl, didn't you? What are your memories of Beryl?
Yes, well, when I first started to ride my bike, which is many years ago, Beryl was competing and living in the Midlands as we do. We got all the top ladies to come down. You always knew that you were never going to win because Beryl nearly always took that top spot. She was an amazing person. She was friendly. She was helpful. She was kind. You couldn't have found a better person. And when you think how far she went and what she achieved in her lifetime, which was sadly cut off very suddenly, she was just such a lovely, lovely person to have and a brilliant ambassador for our sport.
And so against the odds from a health perspective, but also from a perspective of women's sport not getting the recognition that it gets these days.
Well, quite. I mean, if you ask any non-cycling person to name a female cyclist, 9 times out of 10, the name that they'll come up with is Beryl Burton, for obvious reasons. And she's just such an iconic, I think is a word that this week's been said is not very good, but she was. And obviously, Denise is such a good representative to be here to do that, to say thank you. And she's done it all herself. She's in her own element with that. She's a great person too.
And thinking ahead to next year, we started this show talking about the World Championships in Yorkshire next year.
Yeah.
And what a year it's going to be, I guess, for the family and Beryl's legacy.
It is, and you know, with a legacy, and she was so good, and as Sheila said, you know, she was an approachable person, and she inspired so many people. So hopefully she'll carry on inspiring others, you know, within the sport and without the sport as well, you know, out in the world. But yeah.
And I think I'm right. Will Fotheringham is going to write a book about your mum.
Yes. There's a few out there.
There's a few out there. But,
William this morning announced that he intends to write a full biography on Beryl
it's
Burton.
brilliant. It's about time as well, really.
What is
'cause,
about?
You know, she had her own book, which is still in print. And there's been pieces in other books, you know, chapters, but nobody has actually, until now, come across and said, we want to write a biography. And it's like, go for it.
Well, this is the year where that story needs to be
It
told,
does, doesn't it? Yeah,
and when we get to Harrogate next year, at the end of the week of the World
exactly.
Championships,
Yeah.
and hopefully the story's gone around the world.
Yeah.
And here, for
Yeah.
the first woman inductee into the Hall of Fame, sitting alongside
Just-
Eddie Merckx.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
could you
Well,
pick anybody better than
couldn't,
that,
could you?
honestly?
Denise,
Yeah.
Sheila, thank you very much indeed. And put your hands together for the memory of the amazing Beryl Burton.
One final time, ladies and gentlemen, in memory of Beryl Burton.